everyone, how you guys doing? I hope you guys doing good. Thank you very much for feedback and also the questions you asked, and I think I help everyone to solve their problems. Okay, so today is the day we are going to high school from nursery. Okay, yes, we are yet to go to the high school, but today we are going to go to school from nursery. That means we are going to do little advanced project. So I am saying again, if you missed any of previous video, you will not be able to catch this, and also if you're not doing this project what I done last videos, then you will not be able to make this project, because we are going to build continuous project throughout this course. Anyway, so one thing I had to tell you, so make sure if you have a questions and clarification you need about the what we have done, please send a Twitter, not Facebook messages or not the comment. I mean, you can comment on the video, is really appreciated, because that is the way I know that you guys enjoying these videos. But if you have a questions, don't put on over there and just tweet me that one, then I can quickly attend to your problem and help you to solve it. Okay, so since I have seen you guys struggling to solve the problems, what I'm going to do today, I'm not going to build a one-time full working project, but what I'm going to do is I'm let to happen all those common errors, right? So when we do a project, there are few very common errors usually you guys going through. So I'm going to let those happen, then I'll show you how to solve those problems. Anyway, what I'm going to do today, so today is the day we are going to build services to our enterprise application, which is the rent control application, otherwise rent a car application. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a few services, and then in the next video I'm going to show you how we can secure these services using OAuth. Okay, one more thing, this project is I'm going to build as an enterprise application, which means production ready application. That means we are going to follow all those industry practices, right? So we move the common the model objects, domain objects into separate project, and throughout this application what we are going to build, I'm going to use all those industry standard and practices, because you can find any number of the mock services and how to do services, but what you're missing is what are the industry practices, what are the best practices, all those, right? So I'm going to put all those as much as I can into this project, so you will good to learn how to do the real world production application. Okay, so first app service I'm going to build is a profile service. That means in our rent-a-car application, so we need to maintain customer profiles, right? So for that we need to have service called profile service. But you may realize this profile, the customer, otherwise the client. I mean by the customer, the person who comes to rent a vehicle. Okay, so this person is supposed to share through multiple objects. For example, this profile service need this customer object. And why? Because we need to, in this service we need to register customer, update the customer, and fetch all those customer informations. But also the renting service, reporting module, those services also need this customer domain object. That means this model class is eligible, and is a good sign we need to put this into a separate project. Why? Because then we don't have to create these customer model objects, model classes in all your services. What we can do is we can move our model classes to one project, and we can use that project as a dependency for other projects. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So that means the first project is not a Spring project, it's just a classic Maven project. Why? Because we are going to create a models over there. And also I'm going to use the MySQL database, but I'm not going to touch database, right? So in a second or third video we learn how we can make the service to automatically create the database and automatically create the tables and everything. So I'm going to take that approach. So first I'm going to create a project, standard project. This is just a Maven project, right? So I don't need any archetype. So the group ID, Okay, so now we created empty Maven project. So what we need to do is here, we can go here and we can create our package. Okay, so I'm going to create a customer class here. Okay, for this I need to annotate this as an entity, because why, this is the class we are going to deal with the database, right? So this has to mark as an entity. Okay, so now it tells I cannot mark as an entity because I don't have a required dependencies, right? So there are multiple things you can do. So entity is class from the Java Express persistence, so you can go here and add Maven dependency, and it suggests few things to you, so you can select this, so it will automatically add that, right? But when you do that, you will see here when you go to your POM file, so it adds JavaX persistence API and the JavaX persistence. It looks like I have to re-import this, because even though this comes to here, ID didn't import that for me. So what I'm going to do is, now it's everything is ready, so I can import it. Okay, so now I'm going to create few properties. What I need is properties as obviously I need the ID, right? And ID is special, so I'm going to keep a space. So okay, so I have a few properties. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a getters and setters for this. Okay, so now I have a getters and setters and everything is ready. So now what we need to do is we need to put the table name here. What is the table? I'm going to mark this. So I'm going to name the table as a customer, and also ID would be the primary key, right? So what I'm going to do is I need to mark this as a primary key, or otherwise identity column. So I need to put a ID. And also I want to make it as a auto increment number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this as a generated value, right? So you can read the generated value documentation, this annotation documentation. You can mark multiple strategies for here, but default one is auto. So I'm going to keep it as it is. So now my class is ready. Okay, same time I'm going to create a class for vehicle. So again same principle, right? You need to mark as an entity, and I need to give the table name. So again I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to mark this as a ID and also generated values. Okay, so I'm good. So now I have this class as well. So I'm going to create getters and setters for this. Right. So now I have two classes already created, and these classes supposed to be entities. Okay. So now I'm good. So one more thing I can do here. So now these are the model classes, right? So these classes supposed to refer from services which supposed to do the database operation. That means we need two other dependencies. We need Spring Data JPA, and also we need MySQL connector. Okay. So you can add those dependencies on each project, because those are the projects supposed to deal those, but you don't have to go that burden. What you can do is simple, you can add those dependencies directly into this POM file. Here's the logic behind that. So if you need to do any database operations, you need to use these comments into your project, right, as a dependency. So when you do that, if you put some other dependencies in this POM file, so those dependencies will be a dependency for your service as well. We call transitive dependencies, dependency of dependency. So looking at that, so I'm going to add So those two dependencies to here, so in that case it will be very easy to maintain. So I'm going to add directly MySQL connector, and also we can add Spring Boot dependency. But I would, okay, so let's do something like this. So I'm going to add one dependency here, other dependency to service. So just to show you that we can do the both, but otherwise feel free to add all those dependencies here if you need to, but I'm going to do in a mixed mode. So now I'm going to compile the project and see whether everything is good, right? So I'm going to go to run cloud, and I'm going to run cloud commons, right? So I'm going to compile the project. I can do this with the IDE as well, but I prefer to go to shell, so then I can see if something is wrong. Okay, so looks like everything is good. So now I'm good with my model class, right? Model project. I'm sorry, model project. So this project is contains only domain objects, otherwise the model classes. But this object is this project is just a classic Java project, Maven project. It is not a Spring Boot project. Right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a real profile service project. So what I'm going to do here, create a new project. So this time it is a Spring Initializer project. Okay, so go here, fill this information as usual. So for this project I need two dependencies because I need to fetch the configuration from my configuration server. So I need the config client, and also I'm going to add the web dependency for this, and also I'm going to add the data dependency this, right? So Spring data JPA dependency, right? So we could add this dependency to our command project, but to show the mixed mode I'm taking it here, right? So if we need missing anything we can add it later, so don't worry about it. So profile service, so I'm good this, and I'm going to create a new window. But to make it easy, what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to close this project, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to add this to the same ID. So in that case it's easy me to like restart and do everything. So you can do this as two different projects, that's perfectly fine. But why I am doing this here, because in that case it's very easy me to handle both projects because in the same IDE, right? So now I'm good. So I have a profile service and I have a commons, right? So now I go to profile service, and I can see here it's add all those dependencies what I expected to be here, and then I go to main Java here, and this one is good, and I'm going to create a controller. Okay, so I'm going to create a controller class here, profile controller, and I'm going to add this is the REST controller. Okay, and I can add basic request mapping here, right? So you can add services, right? So what does this mean? After the basic URL you have this request mapping path, then you have a method level request mapping path, right? So I'm going to create a new method, so public. So now I need to access my model object which created from my last project, right? So which is a customer object, right? Right now I don't have access to here because I did not added dependency. So what I can do is I can go to this project. That's why I added both projects into same IDE. So now what I can do is I can make this project is a Maven dependency for this one. Okay, so now my profile service is depends on this project, right? So now to make sure I'm going to re-import everything. IDE usually imports everything automatically, but to make sure I do that myself. Okay. So now I'm good with it, and now I go here. Now I can access, I should be able to access my customer objects, right? So you can see here I can access my customer class, right? So you can see run cloud commons model. So I'm returning the customer, right? So this is a save method. In a request body I need customer object, right? So this is here. So now I'm good. Now I need a repository. I'm going to create a repository here. And there I'm going to create customer repository, right. So remember we did this in the last one of last project. So I'm not going to explain this here. This is going to extends JPA repository. So the type is a customer, okay, and integer. Okay, so this is my repository. So then I need to create a service. Okay, I'm going to create new interface called customer service, and there I need a method to save it. So that is supposed to return customer and save. Okay, so this is the method I'm expecting. So I'm going to create into implementation. Okay, this is implements customer service, and now it required to implement those methods, right? Not the methods, only single method right now we have. Okay, so we are good. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to auto wired customer repository. Okay, so I'm going to return here customer repository dot save, and here I'm going to pass the customer object. Okay, so now in the service level I'm good. So now I go back to my controller. Here what I need to do is I need to auto wire my service. So I'm going to create a customer service. So here I will get an error. It's fine. I'm going to show you this. Okay, so now it tells you, it gives you an error, perfectly fine. It says could not auto wire, right? It says could not auto wire. So because we forgot to add, I did it purposely, we forgot to add service annotation here, right? So without a service annotation, the Spring won't create a bean, right? So you remember, either we had to create a bean manually, or we either have to create a component repository, component annotation, service annotation, or repository annotation, then only it can create a bean. So now I go back here. So now it's fine. Now I'm going to say return customer service dot save, and I pass the customer. This is a very basic services now. So now I am all good, right? So now I am all good. So now I'm missing few configurations. Okay, what I have done here, so I created a new repository called Microservices course on YouTube config store. Our usual repository is Microservice course on YouTube. So this will name as a config store. So this I use to store all our configurations. Again, if you missed last video about the configuration service on a JIT, then you won't understand any of this. So go back and watch how this file works. I'm not going to explain this because we have two files here, and you have to understand how the combination of these two files used by the service. To that you need to watch the previous video. So that explained in detail. So here I have application.yaml, which I store these my database configurations and all required configurations. And also in a profile service and profile prod, I have only one file, which is a prod file. I don't have a dev file or anything else. And I have one property. This tells which port this service should start. Okay, so altogether these two files supposed to run configurations to my profile service. So to do that, I need my configuration server. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to add that project as well, right? I'm not going to create a new configuration server because we already created configuration server in our last video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this project here. So now I have my config server project, but this config server project, if you remember, we created we pointed this, it's on a different Git repository. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure this new repository here, okay, and also my new repository path should be service config directory, and then so if you take this, right, it is in the service config directory, then only the service, right. So I have to reflect it here. What I'm going to do is it's a service config directory, and if anything start with the it can be any start with anything, but it has to end with the service. Okay, so now I am good, and this is supposed to run on port 80 8191, and then I need to go back to my profile service and I need to add a bootstrap file and tell what is my configuration server. So how we do that? We go to resource and we add new file called bootstrap.yaml, and here I need to add my configuration store, Spring Cloud config URI localhost 8191, right. So this is the config server. So now this will talk to this config server. This config server will talk to JIT and fetch the configurations. Okay, so seems you are good. And here I'm not going to add anything, application.properties, but I'm going to convert this to YAML again because we always use the YAML. As I said before, I'm going to let certain errors to occur during this process, and I'll show you how we can figure it out, what is the error and how to fix those. Okay, so I'm good now. What I'm going to do here, so I have a 3 project. First I'm going to start my configuration server. Okay, so config server application, so I'm going to run that. Okay, so without any problem it started, right. So now I need to run my my profile service. Okay, so I need to run this service. So I go to that and I'm going to run this. This will, we'll see what happened. Okay, so first it got bunch of errors, so let's try to solve one by one. The first one says I cannot connect to the database using password. Yes, that means my database username password wrong. So that's what it tells you, I cannot connect to this database. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to update the password. So I'm going to go into microservice config store, and I have application YAML, that is the where I created this, and here I'm going to update my password. Right now it says just a password. I'm going to add my password over there. Okay, and same time I'm going to add a new database here called rentdb, and I configured this to create if the database is not exist. Okay, so I'm done. I'm going to save this. Oops, sorry. Right, so before that, if we go and check our database, now we don't have any database called rentdb, right. So this database is supposed to create by this service. So now I am good. I'm trying to run again. Okay, so this time maybe I get a different error, maybe no error, that's fine. Let's see. So now it's trying to fetch the information from my service. Now what it says, it service profile controller unsatisfied dependency expression through the field customer service. It says, okay, I cannot get this dependency, not a managed type. So what it mean? Number one, we did not set our service name. So you can see it's trying to take it from the different default profile, but we don't have a default profile, right? So we only have a two profiles. We only have one profile, which is a prod profile, and we have other application.yaml file, but we don't have something called default profile. So in that case, it won't fetch any data. So how we can fix this in a IDE level? So here we can go and add the hey, I need to run on a prod profile. So I am going to run this again. So now you can see here it's expecting a prod profile. Okay, when you run this from a command line, you can set the Spring Active profile to the prod, but when you run on IDE, you can go to the run configuration and change it. Okay, so this time, okay, I still do have that error. So now I want to set, now it's trying to get the application, name is application, right? So but we don't have a service name called application. So that means we need to go here and we need to go to our file, we need to go to the property file and update application name. Okay, application name is profile. Okay, so sounds good. Let's try again. Okay, so now if you check here, you can see it's checking the prod profile and it's asking profile service data. Okay, so now if we go back to REST client and see whether this is working, 80, so we need to get from 8191 slash profile slash prod. Okay, so this is the expected URL. So if you fetch this one, you will see we get configurations, but yet this my service cannot find this and it says some other issues. Okay, we'll see. So now it still says it's not a managed type, right? So customer repository expecting a customer which is not a managed type. Okay, problem here is this. Okay, I am letting all those errors to occur, errors to happen, and trying to show you how to fix it, because otherwise I could make this as a real one time working project, but I am not doing that because you need to learn how to fix errors. Okay, these are the common errors usually. So now if we go here, this is the problem. Okay, so let me to explain that first before I jump into this. So if you check this one, this package is com.krishantha.rentcloud.profile service. Okay, if we go to rent common and my customer class here, so you will see this package is com.krishantha.rentcloud.commons.model. So that means my models are in different package and my application run on a different package, right? So that's why this application cannot find this customer class as it's not a managed type. Okay. So now what I can do is I can tell this application go and look into this page for entity as well. So what we can do is we can tell entity scan base packages is, in this case I only have a one. So what we can do is we can go here and we can copy this package and add it to here, right? So now this service will know okay, I need to scan these packages also to find the entities. So now let's try to run again. Okay, we are good, right? So it's running. So now if you see closely here, so this runs on 9191 port, but in our classes none of property files we configure to run on a 9191 port, right? So but if you go here, you can see in the configuration it says the application.yaml service default configuration file, service prod configuration files tells you run on a 9191. So this is how, this is on the GitHub. So this is how it fetched this one, and it connected to the database as well, right? So we can see here, if you go to the database and if you refresh it, you can see RenDB is created, right? So RenDB is created, why? Because it fetched the configuration from application YAML. If you confuse how these two files came and helped your service, go back and watch last video, okay, git back configuration server, right? So if you go here, if you go to this database, you don't have any tables, right? Now what I am going to do is I am going to tell my service you need to create tables along with the service. So how I am going to do is I go back to my application YAML. I'm going to say spring.jpa.hibernate ddl auto is to update. Okay. So now I'm going to run this service again. Okay, it's running. So now if we go here and if we refresh this, so you will see tables created, right? You have a customer table and you have a vehicle table. If you go to the customer table, so you will see all the properties here as a table columns, right? So other than these two, you can see other tables also created called Hibernate sequences. So that is the way this Hibernate handle these sequences, right? So you have a next val for this one, and forget about this for now, right? But if you open the customer database, if you open the customer table, you can find any records over there, right? So my service is running. So what I'm going to do is here I'm going to invoke my service. So let's create a new request for this. Save customer. This is a post. Okay, so my body is JSON and I need okay. So my URL is http localhost 9191/services, right? Why we need a services? Because in our project, in our controller, we added services as a common thing, common request mapping. Okay, it's good that we came here, we didn't add request mapping here. So request mapping name is profile and request method is request method dot post. Okay, so now the complete URL would be hostname/services/profile. Okay, so I need to run this again to make sure I effect this request mapping change. Go back to my REST client services/profile. Okay, so I'm going to execute this. Okay, it says not found, no message available, services/profile. Okay, first suspect is usually URL. Looks like URL is correct. So let's go back here. Everything is here I use name is a but it should be value. Let's try again and go back here and execute. Okay, so this time I mean I get certain values as a null, probably it doesn't match with whatever the variables, that's fine. So we can fix it. So let's try this query again. So you can see here DL number U capital. Let's fix the first one first. So this is coming from my comment. So what we need to do is go here, customer, and change this one. So it should be simple. So now you need to make sure you compile this before you move, because this is a separate project. You need to make sure you compile this. So how you can do this, right? So there are two ways you can do. You can do it from here itself. mvn clean install or you can go to the command prompt or the shell and you can compile and run again. Okay, so now I am good. So now I need to go to my profile service form file just to make sure the changes are re-imported. Okay, so now I need to rerun this service. And meantime, let's go and see what happened to the first name. Yes, first name mistake is here, right? So that's why like I created two different mistakes. One is in the class file, right? So in the class level, U was capital, and the second, the N was capital, N was simple in the request, right? So two different errors in the two different types. So I'm going to create this record again. This time I got everything back. So if I go to database, I should see second record. Okay. So if you want, you can try something like this. I'm going to drop all these three tables, drop now. So now I don't have any tables, right? And I'm going to start this service again. So this is supposed to create all those tables. Okay. So if we refresh again, yes, it did create the tables, right? I have three tables now. Okay. So but I should not have any records here. Yes, I don't have records. So I'm going to execute this, and if I go back here, I should be able to see all those records. Now I can create new record again. Let's say Saman Pereira. Okay, so I'm going to execute again, and if I fetch here, I should see second record. Okay, so you can see number is auto generated, so it's fine. So now this is how we can create very basic service, right? But what you need to pay your attention to the steps we have taken, right? For example, what we have done is we created separate project for a model classes. Why? Because those models supposed to share across the services, right? So you don't have to create a model and every time on your services, right? If you create, it make a disadvantage for you. Let's say you want to add some new property, right? So or you want to change some property, change some name or something, right? So in that case, it will be really hard for you. Why? Because you have to change this on multiple services, right? So you change in the database or you forgot to change on some service, the service will break. But in this approach, what we do is we create all the models in a one project, and we take that project as a dependency to our services. So in that case, if we change something, we just need to change on the class itself, right? On the common shared project itself. Now you have a few works to do, right? So you need to implement the vehicle service as the same as I created a profile service. Now in that case, we have two different services to work with. And also I just create the create record, otherwise save. So you need to implement the two other methods to fetch a particular profile and fetch all profiles. Okay. So next video, I'm going to teach you how we can secure these services. Right now, anyone can invoke this service and anyone can create record into the database. This should not happen, right? So people who has a create record privilege should be able to create the record, and people only has the people who has only read permission should not be able to create record, and they only should be able to read the records, right? So I'm going to show you how we can secure this service with the next video. But in order to do that, you need to make sure you get these two services up and running on your local machine or wherever you decide to do. So then if you have a particular audience who you think this type of videos will be interesting, and people who are looking for learn microservices, please do share this video. And also, if you're not subscribed yet, this is the right moment to subscribe. Then I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe. Take care.